Revit geometry. Um, so I've got a Revit model here. It's just basically just a simple building and divided into a few couple of rooms. And just one thing I want to point out is, yeah, there's a mass there, so there's like massing data in there, which obviously is going to have a significant shading impact on these windows. So we may want to include mass in those models. So if I dive into CBDM tools, oh, not butterfly, CBDM tools, right? Revit Core, Revit Extras. Revit Core are essential things you will need to use if you want to use Revit geometry. Revit Extras are bits and pieces that are useful. So the first one is we want to just bring in all the room, the Revit model. So I think the first thing you're going to notice is that looks quite different from what we saw here. Yeah. Um, the reason is, actually, it's probably more useful if I look at it like that. The reason is, actually, let me just show it like that. Perhaps I think you can sort of see the relationship there. Is the way this works, the way I get my rooms here is I'm looking at the room volume data, yeah, not the actual walls and the ceilings and the floors, the room volume data. The reason for doing that is I get very consistent surfaces, and it means that if you, providing you give me that, I can always make you the room with the windows and stuff. If I start pulling in the actual sort of room constructions and walls and floors, so many different things can happen. It all just becomes unreliable. This way, it either catastrophically fails or just works. I prefer things just to fail rather than give bad data. You know, you need to model that in. If for example this area in the middle was significant in that it was perhaps providing meaningful shading, and this model it doesn't matter, but if it was providing meaningful shading, well then we would need to either model it in Revit or use some of the facilities in CBDM tools to actually make that space in the middle. All right, and no, I won't do it yet. Okay, so let's go back to CBDM tools. So at the moment, these are just outlines. They're not Revit sort of geometry. They're not radiance geometry. So first thing we need to do is plug all this in here. If I double left click, yeah, double left click, enter my room index. Doesn't matter what room because we're just an example. Although no, it doesn't matter, but not that room. Uh, Yeah, okay, that's a nicer room, isn't it? Okay, so we've chosen our room. Now we need to convert that into a radiance file. So we go room names, Revit rooms, and again see the same, you know, same words, the same words. Room index, and what this is going to do is write a radiance file. Yeah, so it's telling us, well, it's telling up here, isn't it? This is the radiance file address. You don't. I'm just showing you. Don't need to do anything with it. And okay, we've got that now. Something I'm going to show you in. No, actually, I'll carry on. Okay, prep radiance file. This is the next bit. Just you don't. I'm going to go through this in detail in the next part, but I just want to. There's something important I want to show you. That was right click string there and documents. I just need to provide a location. I haven't put this on default because you might forget you've done it and it'll be like saving documents all over your computer. So I want you to have responsibility for that. Right, so I've prepped my rooms and now they are ready to be displayed. So if I do that, nothing's happened. Why has nothing happened? There's a very good reason for this. And it is if I node out, yeah, node output text. So you can look at it down here, but I'm just going to make it nice and big for you. What's happened is this Revit model here has been made using millimeter units. So let's say this whole building is 50 meters long. It's 50,000 millimeters. Radiance is expecting everything in meters. So if you try to feed that meter in, if you try to feed that into radiance, it will literally say, oh, you've got a room that is 50,000 meters long. So I've coded it in here that it will stop you from going any further, because you need to correct that before you can move on. So there's actually a function in here called in Radiance Extras, scale radiance geometry. So if before you prep the file, if you feed that into scale radiance geometry, and on the default I've set it to 0.001, and that is a number from converting millimeters to meters. So now if I feed that in like that, yeah, now it's worked. So I'm going to stick that down there, and we don't need to, we still need it, but we don't need to see it. That's right click, preview off. Yeah, right click, preview off. Right, so now it's we've got ourselves a range geometry. See how that's sticking out there? The reason it's sticking out is because it's simulating the wall thickness. So yeah, so the sort of the shading impact of the wall void, that's why that's there. It's all divided, so it's divided into a ceiling, a wall, a floor. If I can, yep, there's the floor. Everything's different materials, and the rooms that you have not used have turned into exterior shading objects. But there's one critical thing that's missing from here, and that is we had that like big shading object there that is you know, that's going to make a massive difference, isn't it? To if we count this right now, it's just going to be like looking at nothing, where that is not the case. If you go into Revit extras, there is actually there is a, if I just say like get Revit units, that performs the check for you, and it'll say, is Revit set to meters or millimeters? And you see it is warning us here, Revit units are set to millimeters. And I think it rambles on about, yeah. So, you know, so if you did make your room 7 meters, Radiance will think it's 7 kilometers. So you need to sort that out as we did. Could make it smaller in Revit. I just find the quicker I'm out of Revit, the easier my life gets. If I go get Revit masses, just stick it in there. Default 20% reflectance, it's usually about right. You know, if it's a different color, just plug in a, I don't know, let's say it's 0.5 reflective. Yeah, so now we've changed that, and it's got a file address there. But what's the difference between these and these? This is just an outline. This is not it's not kind of in the model yet. So what we need to do is bind the two of them together, and I'm going to need to use the same. We're going to need to scale that down as well. So if I feed that into the scale function, right, so it's now smaller. Notice as well, what I did is when you scale, I mean, this is just, wait, see can you see how, look, it's the name of it is now got scale by 001, so you it's you don't even need to remember that, but if you it's useful to me. So like if I was trying to look at what's gone wrong, then you could say, ah, well, that was scaled at some point. If you right click and write list, this is like a native Dynamo node, list create, yeah, because what I can't do at the moment is I can't get both of these into the prep radiance file. But if I put these together and that together, now I fit that in. There we go. See how it's got a different color as well? That's because it's got its own unique material. So now we've gone from this Revit model here to full, this model here, yep, there's the model, to full radiance geometry. So there's an example. It's not perfect because as you saw, things could go wrong, things can be missing, things can be the right size, until, yeah, that's my solution. If you set your project up right at the beginning, it can just be a very fluid workflow. If not, you'll have to do a little bit more work to sort it out. So that is importing Revit geometry. Moving on to the next thing.